Well, I just watched the third episode of the new season of Star Trek Picard, and my enthusiasm is now beginning to wane. The first episode I thought was reasonably good. Second episode was kind of treading water. And the third episode is better than the second, but it's kind of, it's just, it had difficulty holding my attention. It, I mean, again, you're hiding in a space nebula. That's something that Star Trek's done before. You've got that very nasty superior ship chasing after them. You've got the usual stuff. It's kind of Wrath of Khan type, hiding in the nebula from the superior adversary until you can outsmart them, kind of thing. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I mean, again, it's certainly still much better than any of the Trek we've seen in quite some time, and that's not just the stuff that's been made over the last couple of years. I mean, I would consider Star Trek Enterprise to be the kind of the the pre-current Trek. It's been this ever since Deep Space Nine came to an end. It's Star Trek on television has been in decline. Voyager was a fantastic idea that was never fully exploited to its potential, principally because of regression in the storytelling. They went from serialized storytelling in the later seasons of DS9, which I think was hugely to its benefit, to highly episodic storytelling in Voyager, which, considering the kind of the premise and the premise of Voyager, was fundamentally ill suited to it. On top of that, you have a, well, again, I could go on and on about Voyager and Enterprise, but again, this is the best Trek we've seen in quite some time. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's where we need it to be. So the advantage that Next Gen has over this show is that Next Gen was highly episodic and was probably kind of, one could argue, the peak of episodic television, U.S. television, that's ever been produced. Because again, highly, again, episodic Next Gen was good. It was really good. Now, obviously, because of the era it was in, we had to have like 20, 22 episodes a season. There was inevitably going to be episodes that were, of highly variable quality. Some episodes are very good. Some episodes are genuinely mediocre, and there's usually at least one or two stinkers per season. But that was the era. If the writing team on Next Gen had only had to write, say, 12 episodes a season, so the quality overall would be much, much better. The problem that this show is having is that it has serialized storytelling, which is now the norm. But while the quality on a per episode basis is certainly better than the Trek we've seen recently, or I would argue either Star Trek Enterprise or Voyager, it's still not good enough to hold your interest over the long term. I mean, one could genuinely argue that they should have published the first three episodes together in one go, maybe even the first four. But it needs the show needs some. It's going to need and I'll continue to watch it because I have a personal loyalty to the cast and so on, and I'll continue to review it for you. But it needs an uptick in quality, and that needs to start happening soon, and it needs to stay in place for at least for at least the rest of the show, because it's if this is what we can expect for the rest of the show, then it's still better than what the Trek we've seen recently, which is saying how bad the Trek we've seen recently has been. But it's also it's not enough to kind of, I think, to hold an average kind of casual audience / casual Star Trek fan audience throughout the entire run. Like, I'll continue to watch because I'm a big Star Trek fan, have been historically, but this is not This is not, it's serialized television storytelling rather than episodic, and that means that things are more drawn out, and it's not where it needs to be in terms of specific, you know, nitpicking points. I think some of the kind of the disagreements or confrontations between Riker and Picard, particularly at the end of the episode, and the very last bit, the very last thing that Riker kind of says to Picard during the episode is kind of out of character as far as I'm concerned. And the subplot involving Raffi, and again, spoiler warning, because again, I'm not gonna, these are not gonna be non-spoiler reviews. The subplot with Raffi and Worf, which is coming into it now, is, it's now kind of being integrated into the main story, because again, spoiler warning, it turns out the enemy for this show is rogue changelings, or at least one of the enemies for this season is rogue changelings, changeling terrorist group that split off from the changeling leadership of the Dominion after the Dominion War. And I mean, it's an interesting way of going things. It's an obvious way. Like, I mean, that would make an awful lot of sense. There would be changelings that have gone rogue. It's unfortunate that the actor who played Odo, Rene, I can't pronounce his second name. Unfortunately, he unfortunately died. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember. Unfortunately. But which is a real pity, because I'd love to see him in an episode of this show. Because again, I view the Deep Space Nine cast of characters, particularly the non-Starfleet characters, as some of the most unique and interesting characters I've ever seen in Star Trek. Odo, Kira Nerys, Garak, Quark, all great characters, and very much outside the kind of Star Trek mold as we saw in TOS, Next Gen, and also later on in Voyager and Enterprise, which I think is one of the reasons why those shows, Voyager in particular, kind of suffers. I consider it with the more modern shows running from Next Gen to Voyager. Voyager, in my view, is by far the weakest, because it doesn't push the innovations that were produced in DS9 forward. It just regresses backwards, and not in good ways. But again, compared to this show, production value is very much there. The special effects, the CGI sequences are all very good looking. It looks great. It's a bit on the dark side compared to Next Gen, but that's maybe to be expected. The core problem is that it's now in the realm of serialized storytelling and television, and it's just certainly the second episode and now this one are just not doing enough to kind of keep momentum or maintain momentum or push momentum, increase the momentum for the show and the storytelling, and therefore it's now having difficulty holding my interest. It'll be interesting to see what happens next episode and so on, but I'm beginning to question, maybe, I know there were a few people who were generally kind of significant, I think the term to use is Kurtzman Trek critics / skeptics, who were out there, who apparently got access to the entire season run before it was released and watched the episodes and been saying it's good. I'm beginning to now question them / get a bit suspicious. My suspicion being is that I'm a bit concerned that maybe, just maybe, a good chunk of the of why they like the show. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously much better written than any of the recent Star Trek shows, and much better done. But my concern is now kind of getting into the area of, they got to see all 10 of the episodes. I think it's a 10 episode, the full length, the full season, all in one go. I assume they binged it, and so they're not in the situation that I'm in of having to wait week to week for each episode, and my enthusiasm therefore kind of going down over time in real time. They were able to blast through the first 5, 6, 7, though the entire run of the show probably in a single day, maybe 2 days, which probably helped them in terms of any kind of quote unquote fatigue with the show. And again, my suspicion would be is that it's a combination of that, and maybe also a variety of kind of quote unquote member berries that were thrown their way by the show. In other words, fan favorite characters turning up, and God knows what else. Well, again, other fan favorite characters and so on turning up over the course of the remainder of the season, and God knows what else, which might be playing to kind of the kind of hardcore Star Trek fan base that I'm not a particular fan of. I again, as with Star Wars, my view on fan service is the fan service for Star Trek fans or Star Wars fans is new Star Trek and new Star Wars that is good, not a constant flow of cameos by fan favorite characters that just disrupts the flow of the show and have no reason in terms of the story to be there, which I find pretty annoying. As it is, again, it's still better than the terrible Star Trek we've been getting recently, but it's gonna have to improve things on the writing and the story. And it doesn't mean more action and more explosions or things like that. Just the show is moving very slowly at present, and it's moving very slowly at present. How long are the episodes? The episodes are, they're over the episode 3 is 55 minutes long, so that's a lot longer than a next gen episode would be. And certainly, like House of the Dragon has episodes of similar length, maybe even longer length. That was a very entertaining show. I thought it was very, very good. But there's not enough momentum in the storytelling, considering how long the episodes are, and we're dealing with, again, serialized television. Too much hanging around talking. It's exposition, as it were, for my liking, and it is, frankly, from my standpoint, it's not necessarily getting boring, but it's having difficulty holding my attention, and I would like to see an uptick in things next episode and over the episodes that follow. Otherwise, this season might go down as the best Star Trek we've seen in quite some time, but that won't necessarily mean that it's up to the quality of Next Gen or DS9, which I think would be a huge pity. And if particularly because what it might Picard's legacy, Patrick Stewart's legacy, the first two seasons. The first season was terrible. The second season I didn't bother watching, and so there's some murmurs that we might not get to see live action Star Trek, and certainly in television form, anytime in the foreseeable future, because of how badly things have gone over the last couple of years. In my views, that would be a terrible pity. But something, they need to. Again, so far this is a move in the right direction, considering how god awful the last couple of years of Star Trek have been. But they need to kind of up their game next episode and for the rest of the season if they want to have the show be anything other than best Trek in years, but still not as good as DS9 or TNG, even though they have the advantage of serialized storytelling and vastly larger production budgets and therefore production quality. Anyway, that's my view on this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please like the video, and if for some strange reason you already haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so I can keep on talking to you. For now, toodaloo.